the square root function. This is the look in equation form, and this is the look in graphical form. So when you have a square root equation, which can be f of x equals square root of x or y equals square root of x, remember f of x and y mean the same thing. It has this shape. The look of the graph for a square root function has this shape. So you already have an idea of what the graph is going to look like, what form it's going to take. Now keep your eye on the square root, since we cannot pick x's under the square root that would provoke a negative under the square root. So I cannot pick a number to replace the x if that x provokes a negative under the square root. And the reason is that if you pick an x that provokes a negative under the square root, you're going to have imaginary numbers, and we're working with real numbers. So you avoid the imaginary numbers. In this next problem, you're going to ask us to graph this particular square root function, this one. So if you forgot all the tricks and all shortcuts of how to graph one of these equations, drawing a table always works. But when you have a square root, you have to be on the lookout of not picking x's, because you get to pick the x's that provoke a negative under the square root. So how do you avoid picking those x's? Well, what you do is you write x plus 1 should be greater than or equal to 0. Notice the square root of 0 is okay. Square root of 0 is 0. There's nothing wrong with that. But you want it to be either 0 or positive. Remember, greater than 0 is another way of saying positive. So solve this inequality, and this will tell you what the x's can be. So whatever x you pick should be greater than or equal to negative 1. And if you stay in that group of x's, there will be no problem with the square root. Therefore, only x's that are greater than or equal to negative 1 can be picked. So I pick negative 1, 0, 1, and 2. Pick some easy x's. Be easy on yourself. Once you pick these x's, you plug them in where the x is. So notice negative 1 goes here. So negative 1 plus 1, that would be 0. Square root of 0 is 0. So this is going to turn into a 0. And you do that to each one of these x's. This x is going to take the place of that x. Simplify. Then this x and this x are going to take their places, and they're going to produce their partner y's. After you simplify, each one of these pairs represents a point. So you label, you scale your axis, and you start plotting points. Notice 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So at the negative 1 mark for the x, the y is 0, so the point goes here. At the 0 mark, y is 1. So this is where you put your point, and so on. So this graph is a graph of y equals square root of x plus 1.